In this live stream, we are going to discuss how to win in a shifting real estate market. There is so many headlines out there, so much doom and gloom, yet this is not something that hasn't happened historically over and over again, and a great opportunity for you if you know how to attack it. We're also going to give some advice on how to just batten down the hatches, make sure that you and your house are protected. If you're an investor looking to make investments, you might be asking yourself questions like, is now a time to buy? If interest rates keep climbing, will prices keep declining? I don't want to make a mistake, but 3 months ago, you were asking yourself, man, there's no cash flowing deals out here. How do I make sense of it all? We're going to answer a lot of those questions. We're going to bring on two expert investors, Matt and Tiffany Byl. We've been able to work with them for a number of years now. I've watched them grow their portfolio through hard work, through some of the hardest markets I've ever seen. So we're going to get to pick their brain. Lindsay Gowan and I, in a couple seconds here, are going to go over some market stats. So we're going to show you our MLS, what's actually happening from an inventory level perspective. We'll have a quick discussion about the market. We'll get right into it. In these masterminds, it's interactive. So if you're here as an audience member, drop a question in the chat. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. On Facebook, we have a private members only group called the Prime Real Estate Mastermind. That's where we drop these links, these events, and you can connect with the investors themselves. So if you want to connect with Matt and Tiffany, discuss investing, they're super collaborative, very, very dynamic people. So I definitely encourage you to use that as an opportunity. So Lindsay Gowan, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am good. It looks like you're getting a bit of a tan. I guess lots of golf, beaches, sunshine, and real estate investing, right?
Exactly. The dream life.
That's awesome. Well, let's dig right into the stats. So everybody always asks about our MLS as if we have the magic potions, but they're not. This is just our system that we have access to. We're on 3 different boards. So everybody understands how MLSs work. Picture a giant pipeline of real estate listings. That would be realtor.ca. And then you have all these little different boards that tap into the pipeline to feed it. That would be the London St. Thomas board, Toronto Sarnia board, Matrix, and ITSO is the largest real estate board in Ontario, and it comprises a lot of other listings, but this is the one I'm going to be showing you right now. But keep in mind, it's not all of the information. So when we're hunting for properties, we're looking for off-market deals, we're actually going to different boards, different private groups, and using more than just this. But this will give us a really good snapshot. I already pulled up London. London's a test market. Keep that in mind, right? So like McDonald's, Wendy's, a lot of the large companies use London because it has a very dense population base, 5th biggest city in Ontario, but it is so isolated that you're not going to run to Toronto to buy a pair of shoes. And it gives you a really good litmus test of the market in general for the nation because it's very diverse and it has all kinds of different industries and product types. I always think it's fun on the masterminds to look at the inventory. So I just pulled multifamily inventory, and looking at all of these gives you a snapshot of an apartment building that's selling for $11 million. Fun fact about this apartment building, I remember sending it to an investor in 2013. It's in Old South, and the owner had bought it for $2 million, and we were looking to do a deal at $3 million back in 2013. Now they're asking $12 million for it. It's been on the market for a little bit. They added a ton of upside to this building, and it looks like they've maximized it. I know some units can still be renovated, but it's an indication that people are really being a lot more cautious in terms of the deals they're willing to write right now, because I feel like in February, March, this probably would have flown, but a great building and a great location. As you're going through, you're looking here on the subtype, and you're seeing a triplex on Wolf Street is listed at $1.4 million. So 3 units divided by that's $500,000 a unit. You can break down the bedroom number of beds. There's 8 beds in this one. So that gives you some context to what that's trading for. You're also seeing a myriad of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes in different ranges, 1.2, 1.4. I'll go to the bottom end because I think it's always fun to look at this. And you're seeing on Alma Street, a duplex for $549. You're seeing a duplex on Clarence Street for $298. The reason that you're seeing such a big gap is obviously location and probably quality of the asset. And sometimes looking at it and then seeing vacancy and bad debt, that will impact the pricing where you're like, man, I can get that for $100,000 a unit. I'll take it. But the amount of work that it's going to take you to get it to where it's going to perform like an A class, you can spend a little bit more money or a whole lot more time. It's up to you. Lindsay, your opinion of the market in general right now, this is just London, but what are you seeing out there? Doing offers, are you still seeing multiples? What's the general sentiment right now?
Yeah, I think it's funny too as we shift. We didn't do a mastermind last month, so it seems like this is the first time that we're saying it's cooling a little bit. It's shifting more in a buyer's favor. We're headed more to a balanced market, which is great for our buyers that were trying to get properties under contract in competition before. We're still seeing some multiples out there if you are pricing aggressively, but we're seeing more priced at where people want having the property sit on the market for a little longer and understanding that, yes, we are in such a hot seller's market where properties were selling from 2 to 6, 8 days on the market, where we're seeing longer, and it does seem extreme because of the difference of where we were. But yes, it's a great time for buyers, and vacant possession still seems to be such a hot commodity these days.
Yeah, and I think we'll ask actually Tiffany and Matt about that before we get into the fireside chat. I'd love their opinion on the market, but I think one reason why is over the last 3 years, the issues people have had putting tenants in, and then all of a sudden the tenants just stop paying, and the backlog of dealing with that issue at the courts, a lot of people just don't want to deal with it. I think if you get good investors like Matt and Tiff buying good properties and treating their tenants like human beings, you could have great relationships and build them long term. But I think we've gone through a bit of an interesting time over the last couple of years with that. So if you're an investor, look for vacant possession. I think there's a great opportunity there because rents are rising, prices are decreasing. In my opinion, I mean, for years, people were always saying the numbers don't make sense. The numbers don't make sense. And we would always say, for sure, they don't make sense. And you're never going to find a property in London if you're just looking at cash flow advertised. It's where can we find opportunity? Where can we create opportunity? Now it's flipping. We're seeing more aggressive cap rates. We're seeing more opportunities, but I think you have to be thoughtful about why are you buying it, right? And advice to sellers out there, if you're an investor looking to sell, you have to be realistic now more than ever. We're down, I would say, pricing wise, February to March, I would say 100 to 200, depending on the asset. The good thing is you make that up on the buy side of whatever you're looking to acquire. But if you're looking to sell, the reality of it is you can't price 300 under and expect 400 over. You have to be tactical. You have to price at what the property is worth. And then you have to hustle hard to find the right people who see the opportunity and will pay the maximum value for that asset, willing to put in the work. There's also some interesting statistics. If anybody wants to get educated on real estate as a whole, it's from an agent's perspective, but this works for everybody. There's a great book called Shift. We're going to be doing it at the Prime Book Club next week. I already talked to Kyle about it. I'm going to buy it for the entire team. And it talks about historical recessions and times where markets go through shifts. And you're looking at 15 to 17 months on average. Not a very long time when you think about it. So if I had to fast forward, you say 17 months from now, and all of a sudden we're right back into a hectic market and on a large upswing, my question to you would you look back saying, man, I wish I would have snapped up A, B, and C properties for my 2 to 3 year plan for those properties while that was happening versus being caught in what we were caught in February to March and call it a year and a half to 2 years. So interesting conversation. Matt and Tiffany, give me thumbs up if you're ready. I will bring you onto the actual screen. Awesome. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
Good. Thanks
great.
for adapting with us with all the technology difficulties. We got everything rolling. So they're in studio. Lindsay is at Prime headquarters as well. Everything we just discussed, what are your thoughts in general and sentiment on the market? Because clearly we're the agents, but you're out there in the field looking at deals and acquiring properties.
Yeah, I mean, we both keep a pretty close eye. I think for us, we're looking for investment properties and tracking that. And I think part of what it's done on the investment side has, we're looking at new properties or analyzing deals. It really puts an emphasis on cash flow. So you want to, which always should have been a fundamental that you're looking at. But I think in the past, you could have, rode the appreciation or things like that. But right now, it's like you really got to look at properties that strategically fit in with what what we're looking for. But cash flow is the big thing, because I think if you're already tight and then in an environment where interest rates are potentially going up and squeezing that, I think you gotta really put yourself in a situation where you're not going to get extended or anything like that. You have a buffer, right? So, but there's lots of opportunities now. Like I think before you're looking at MLS and it was like maybe a couple of listings that seemed like popped up
13
each day and you couldn't find.
Last mastermind, we had 13.
Yeah,
and now we have
options,
64.
right?
So yeah.
Cool.
I was going to ask you as well, like this is something we're going to get into. We're going to talk about flipping versus long-term rentals, being an expert in a specific area, selling when it makes sense, and exit strategies. You hit the nail on the head. I think that's the biggest thing is people kind of got hyped up on too many YouTube videos and watching other investors on Instagram, not seeing the work that actually goes into it. And, you know, having exit strategies that don't purely depend on passive appreciation. I mean, we run our numbers, I think, at like 3 to 5% passive appreciation, hedging just above inflation. Now that it's below inflation, you were talking about interest rates. I think that's one of the most pressing conversations right now when you're doing your calculations. How are you looking at, you know, forecasting appreciation? How are you looking at the interest rate changes, maybe affecting your investment decisions? Are you separating, say, passive or the principal pay down from the interest and looking at, you know, how much am I putting into my piggy bank and how much am I paying the bank? So how are you strategizing on that side of the fence when you're looking at deals and maybe battening down the hatches a little bit?
Yeah, so I think like our portfolio strategy overall, and we've worked with you guys on this, which has been great. And actually, we had I would even look back to like last November, December. We were working with a real estate coach as well, and just kind of looking ahead to see, you know, as things. We've talked over the last year and looked at like, you know, what properties make sense to hold long term versus ones that we're gonna maybe look to, you know, sell and kind of realize some of those gains. And so I think I was just thinking about this with the semi-detached place that we own. It kind of just broke even on its cash flow, and we stress tested it at like, you know, if the interest rates go up to, you know, 5% or whatever, then we're going to be potentially in a negative spot after doing a refinance on it. So that was one that we like sold earlier this year in the up market still. And so just like cashing in on something like that where you get the win. Yeah. And it was like, and I remember as we were like, that's where like relying on the experts and having that, you hear people talk about a power team, but it really does make the difference because we were, there was more renovations and things we wanted to do to it to get it ready to sell. But the more important thing at the time, I think it was like, I remember the exact timing, but it was like February, March this year. And Lindsay and yourself just were like, you know, get it on the market. That's the most important thing right now because you're starting to see those shifts starting to take place. And we got a great, like there was still a multiple offer situation and, you know, sold for a great price. So, so that one was a big win on again, I think it's just getting into like a good, you know, being liquid, I think is important right now from the sense of like having security, but also from the sense of like being able to look for new opportunities as well. Right. And just kind of pivoting your portfolio. So now I think like what we're kind of just, looking for those opportunities, as they come up. Right. And it's like, and cash flow is for sure the most important thing that we're looking at as far as adding to our portfolio, but also just like solid, properties that you want to hold for the long term. So I'm picturing in my head, like, just like that, I don't know, like a downtown, like one property we have is that like a downtown brick home that it's just like this solid property that you want to own it long term. And it's like, maybe you don't want that, you know, I'm not as excited about the, you know, maybe a C neighborhood or something like that you're just kind of like, yeah, like, you know, it's good. And those ones helped us get to a point, and now we're kind of like shifting a little bit in how we think about things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really being the expert in investing and in your neighborhoods, in your market, helps you kind of set apart yourself from everyone else and then decide when it is time to sell, and when it is time to keep. But in terms of your tenant profile, what are you looking for? Because I know that it goes beyond just the property itself. So what type of tenants are you looking for?
Sorry, we had a hard time hearing that question. Can you turn up the volume a little bit?
Yeah, I'll talk super loud. What type of tenants are you looking for? It goes beyond just the scope of the numbers, but yeah, Lindsay was asking what kind of tenant profiles are you looking for?
Okay, yeah, the volume just got turned up. I can hear that loud and clear. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and you know, that's a great question because I think like for any project, like whether it's a flip or it's a rental, I think when you're purchasing a property, I already start thinking about who would be attracted to this property. And so if it's a rental and you're picturing that tenant, yeah, it's totally what I starting to think about now. So I think that I like that some of the downtown properties where you can kind of get that young professional. and people that are, I guess like to be close, walking distance to a lot of things like that. Hopefully have a secure job where they're going to be paying rent. But really, the multiple units is the nice part too, right? If you can get 2 or 3, 4 units in a property, you just have more of a buffer there. And I think that was part of our evolution as investors. Like the first property we bought was that semi-detached property, and it just, it got us started, but then we started to kind of learn as we went as well.
And I think it's good to note too, on that first one, you had said to us that when you first bought it, you thought it was too late to invest in real estate. So I think that is a really great aspect to touch on. Why did you think it was too late, and what have you learned since then?
Yeah, I thought it was too late because London had been like a flat market for appreciation for so long. And then we had a big peak that spring. I think it was 2017, the year that we bought our first place. And so I just I've been waiting. And actually, that's kind of the thing that got me to take action though, too, because I was like, part of it was I didn't want to look back and feel like it was that thing that I always kind of kicked around, but never gave it a go. And I felt like the risk of not doing something was greater than the risk of taking the action, right? Like I was actually okay to the point where, you do your due diligence. If you overthink it, you're probably never going to do it. But if you don't think about it enough, you probably won't do it either. And maybe you'll make so we just got to that point where we just had to take the chance. And then I do still remember, after I bought, I was like, oh crap, what did I just do? But then, you start to kind of see it working, right? And then you kind of, oh, okay, that's good. And then, we didn't have a plan to do anything beyond that. It was just to have that one property pay itself off over time. I was working full time, 4 young kids. We had a lot on our plate. So it was just, let's get this one property. And if it pays itself off by the time we retire, we'll have whatever it's worth. And that was it. So it was definitely a different time of life.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Tiffany. I definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. And we went with something that made us feel comfortable too. Like what we went in with our first property, we would never buy that sort of now. Yeah. Obviously, we've learned a lot, but we went with something that was more comfortable and learn from that.
I think it's more important to, I'll call it hit a single or a double maybe on your first property. Everyone wants that home run deal. But you just don't want to, if you're swinging, just use that baseball analogy, but sometimes you're swinging for the fences and you strike out, right? And so if you're trying to get that crazy unicorn deal, whatever it is, you might get it, but you could also, take a big risk and it might not work out. You just want to have to me, I look at it you want to have that first property that you see it start to work like we did, and then you kind of just build from there, and you'll learn as you go, right? Mm-hmm. So,
well, every successful story I've heard from Scott McGilvery to you guys is that, right? And, I've had the chance to have that conversation with Scott, and it started with, he kind of just fell into it and just started figuring it out and used the lessons from the first to the second to the third. And he said the first and the second were the hardest. Getting to 5 was the biggest stretch. But then once he passed that, everything changed. I got a question for you guys listening to the story. You talking to you back then, if you were both sitting in the room at the same time, how much has that changed your life, or what kind of position are you in now versus where you were back then?
It's funny because I've actually been kind of a weird mindset shift lately where I've had to remind myself of that, because I think 5 years ago, I think I would have just been ecstatic of where I'm at right now, right? And where we've grown. And then sometimes it's you kind of, I think a lot of entrepreneurs maybe kind of relate to this, where you're kind of you're never, I don't know, it's be satisfied and grateful for where you are and live in that space. And then, but also sometimes I'm itching, okay, well, what's next? Or we gotta, so it's trying to kind of balance the two, right? But
well, let me pause you there for a second, because when we partner with people, and again, I always look for this, that's what I look for. Right. Because businesses, I get 2 types of commercial people that'll come to Prime and say, hey, I want to open an office. And I see the one that's my idea is amazing. It's going to be $1 billion idea. Where do I sign? And they don't look at the numbers and they don't look at the risk. Then I see other people that maybe they have kids, they have a family, they're fiscally conservative, and they look at the good, bad, and the ugly, and they're very aware, and they have a sense of I'm not satisfied where I am. I want to get to where I'm going. But they look at both sides. They jump and they do the thing, which you guys did, but they're also looking at, the risks. And I think that's what I look for, because it's a sign that you're going to continue to grow. You'll never be satisfied, because there's always more buildings, always more units. There's always another level to get to. But I think it's the growth journey that you've been through that I think is really cool, because we had those conversations when we're listing properties and we're like, well, what if the market goes up another 10%? Like, are we leaving money on the table? Is this a good time? Like, how do you determine that risk aversion versus when you've taken those times to jump? Because a lot of people do get stuck just analysis. Oh, I got to wait for the unicorn, or what if the market keeps dropping? Like, what actually made you guys make that decision to sign that first deal, and how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, like I think like I was working at the city, and for our context, I was working full time, and our picture was that Tiff was home with the kids, and we wanted her to be there, especially for those early years. And so we kind of realized like our goals, or what we wanted, or I guess you could say like our why of what we were was, I in my head I thought, okay, like once I get this job or this, then like, we'll be good, right? And I quickly kind of realized it's like, well, it didn't quite like move the needle enough for what we wanted. And so I think we knew something, we had to do something, and it wasn't actually the first thing I did was I did drive like Uber for a short period of time, where I was just like, but I quickly realized like it was nice because it was flexible. You can make a little extra cash, like that kind of thing. But like you're just trading time for money. You're tired the next day with the kid, like all that, right? So I exhausted other options so I think for other people, it's like thinking about like what your goals are, what you're trying to work towards, and then think about what you can realistically like take on. And it's a different way of thinking about, like I'd grown up with the middle class way of, basically trading time for money, right? And so when you get into real estate, like I remember working at one of our properties, we don't do a lot of this, pretty much everything's done by contractors now. Yeah, that's one of the shifts we've made over the years. But
probably a slight cost savings hiring a professional, right?
Yeah. I think I came home and I think Tiff banned me from I used to work in construction, but it's like it's maybe lost the touch, or I don't know. Yeah. But
well, it's time deployment too. Like your dollar per hour finding deals. Not only that, I mean, spending time with your family. It ends up being a cost savings, I think, for you to be in a better mood and just sense of just mental capacity than be working till 10 o'clock every night at a property, right?
Yeah.
And that was like, you can talk about, Tiff, when we bought the first property, like Tiff he had 3 or a couple of things around that, right?
Yeah. Like I wanted it close by our house so that it was easy to access. I wanted it all done so he didn't have to be working on it. So those are the things that I was talking about. Like obviously those are not what we look for now. But at that time that was important to me. And I was against it to start with. Like I did not want to get into the real estate. I couldn't even get him to do anything around the house. I didn't want him going out to other houses working on it. So I was actually not on board. And I'm like, you know what? If you need to do this, you do this and just leave me out of it. I want nothing to do with this. And now, like 5 years later, like I'm full blown into it, and it's like been a huge change. So
yeah, I think that's something that's important too, right? Because other people like having your spouse as a partner on it, right? In this case, like Tiff just let me know what the kind of
what I was comfortable with.
And I just worked between that and gave me the freedom to kind of find something. She could see it was a passion, like something that I had to do, right? And so I think you may not always be entirely aligned, but as long as you got an understanding and you're working towards a similar thing, I think that and over time that can develop, right?
And then change, like as I saw it working and like what it did for our family, and then I could see to see that it was going well, and went from there.
But I think just one other thing to add to this is like I think some people I think I used to think there was a lot of safety in your job or in your career, and there can be, but you are also somewhat, it's kind of, especially for us when it was one income back then, right? So you lose your job. that's everything, right? So you got like, your only income source. So part of real estate and investing and having, you know, if there's someone else here that's listening to this that's working full time, it just adds another stream of income or something else that's outside of what so you're more diversified in so you're actually, some people think it's really risky to get into real estate. And talking to some of the guys at work lately and stuff, but it's also, I feel like it's more risky to just be working your job, and that's it.
Well, I would argue you've invested in yourself. You built a skill set that transcends London. If you're like, hey, we're going to Costa Rica, or we're going to Germany, or we're going to New York, you could take your skill set and apply it wherever you are, right? Because real estate's real estate. It's buying, selling, improving properties, looking at rents, holding, the analysis. Nobody can take that away from you, which is interesting because somebody can take a job away from you. The same thing with what we do. I've always thought of that, like the sales skills we transcend. If I had to turn into a coffee shop, I'm pretty sure I'd be okay because the same methodology applies. So let's get tactical about it. And then I'll throw it back to Lindsay. I want to know, as an investor, like, what are the critical pieces and skill sets that you've developed over the years? One, obviously the relationship between the two of you, and how that's grown, and maybe touch on how that developed and what's important in a partnership. But then also the other skill sets that you're constantly pouring into. It could be, you tell me, from deal analysis to building your team to executing renovations. Like, what do you think those core competencies are that you've developed that kind of transcend a job at this point?
Like, for myself, I would say, like, I'm more of the strategic, like, analytical side of it. And I would say, like, Tiff's got a dream board going, and like more of the visionary of, like, and it's funny because, like, we got to this, you're asking about like what's changed for us. Like, Tiff said to me, I think maybe it was like a year ago, she's like, man, we worked so hard, but like what's changed, right? Because I've just been like, work, like, for me, I'm just kind of like, hey, what's the, like, trying to build, but it's like, build for what? Right? Like, to what end? Like, we had more freedom. We had more, like, ability to, like, not have, especially with inflations and things lately, it's like that's not as much of a stress because of
Less pressure.
Less pressure.
Yeah.
But I think you were looking for, like, you know, you had a dream board of things to create, right? And that, like, recently for us, that's been a cottage, and that's kind of like, but you push to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm always running the numbers.
Yeah, I'm definitely like the creative, the organizer, the behind the scenes. He's the thinker. Yeah, and like the numbers and the doer. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I manage projects at work, and I manage projects for our business. Like, it's a really similar thing, and I agree with what you're saying, Justin. Like, I think I'm a much better employee as well as a result. And I don't feel the pressure in my work either. So I think, like, sometimes when you're at work and you're like, hey, am I gonna lose my job, or and it's like, you know, it's just not what I'm thinking about, right? Like, it's just, you know, I more think about what's the best use of my time, what makes sense here, and all that, right? So yeah, it's a totally different approach.
And I think that that's so important too, because it kind of probably gives you a better family life too. You're not taking that stress of work home. It's going into your whole investing and all of that. So I'd love for you guys to touch on, I know you have a large family, so balancing all of that and what skills you're putting in place to kind of give everyone the best life that you can by investing in real estate. But what does that look like on the daily?
Well, I think the whole reason we got into real estate was for our families. So that's one of the things that we try to, like, prioritize in every decision we make is this going to, help our family? Is this going to better our family? And always sort of gauging, kind of like what we were saying, like our time, spending our time. Is this going to take away from our family life, or is this adding to our family life? So
yeah, and I think, like, and actually Tiff kind of take the lead on this, but like, part of what it's done for us is it's allowed, like, we kind of treat a bit of our family life, you know, maybe like the business life carries over, but it's like we have someone that comes on Monday and she does all our, like basically renovates all the chores for the week, right? So it's like she does all the laundry, cooks meals for the week, like, I'm trying to think what she all does. She cleans the house, but just take those things off the plate so that so Tiff could or myself could be spending time doing those things, or we could be putting our like efforts into our work, or when we're home, just being able to enjoy our time with our kids and our family and things like that. So I think you just have to just structure things in a way that makes sense for you and your family. And then, we're taking some trips and things like that, and now we're looking forward to the cottage thing. So like, I remember like the area we bought our cottage was an area where we were looking at it when we were dating. We'd go to this area with Tiff's family and stuff, and sometimes we'd stay at someone's cottage. But like, I remember pulling up to our cottage the first time, and we were just like, we actually own this, right? Like it was just never thought that would be like, that was just we never thought we'd be in that spot, right? So it just gives you options of things that you'd have to, I don't know what you have to work really, like there's so many hours at the office to be able to do something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I love how you guys pivot strategies as well. You evolve as an investor as you go, and you are now into like more of that lifestyle. Like you were able to get a cottage because of the investing. So that's really important as well. But what's next for you guys? What are you guys looking to invest in right now?
So right now I have been pivoting to more active like flip projects. So before that, it had been more buy and hold and building the equity. And I just kind of was, again, that's what I knew. And I did it on repeat doing those projects. And it was
long-term goals,
long-term projects. Yeah. So then I got to this point where I realized I feel like the long-term stuff for what we're looking for was like, we were satisfied. We were good with that. We felt like that was taken care of, but we wanted something to move the needle more in the short term for us. And so that's where we talked about that. We kind of repositioned or sold a few properties, and then we're still keeping some like long term, the ones that we like for those. But then just things to move the needle in the short term were some flip projects that we've done recently. And we realized we have a really good, because we developed that team of contractors. We've got, and Lindsay's got the design background. So we'll look, as we take on a project, she'll come and look at it. And then we'll, and Tiff has some good ideas around that too. So we basically combine all of that. And then, so it's worked really well for our flips. And, you have to design a little differently for flips than you do versus there's some versus a buy and hold. So there's, some changes we've made, but I think we're looking at things now that move the needle in the short term and create more of an active income.
Yeah, I've always found it interesting how some people succeed in spite of government policy, markets. They just find a way, right? True entrepreneurs and people that build businesses and portfolios, they make hay while other people are reading headlines and worrying about what's happening. It's interesting to hear you talk. Real estate, I've always said, is art and math. It looks like we have art and math in front of us because you're very analytical, Matt, at that point. But you're kind of flowing into that space too, where you found something you enjoy doing, love that you're doing it as a couple. Shannon and I run Prime as a couple. It's not always easy, but the communication piece helps us get through those roadblocks where maybe I dig in and I'm like, no, it's this. And she gives me a different perspective when we find our way. But about finding your way in today's marketplace, I think one of the biggest pressing questions in people's minds is, should I even buy right now with interest rate hikes coming? And we've seen a decline since February. Like there's a lot of fear in people's minds of making a mistake. How does that impact your buying decisions? Like, are you guys buying right now? And how are you finding a way when it seems like the media tells everybody else the world is falling apart?
Well, I think part of it is we've been looking, at least for our principal residents, we're looking to buy right now. And part of what we're looking at is you see a price, you're buying and selling in the same market in that context. So, and the prices that we're looking at, some of those homes that we were looking at, it's they've come down in price, right? So it's something that's so there's actually, I should feel more excited about buying or upgrade in that regard, right?
And you can get a financing condition. Oh my goodness, right? You can get an appraisal on a property if you wanted one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then for other property, I think people are very emotional. So people are gonna, just as people got caught up in the hype of like a strong up market. Like I think there's people are going to sell for a lot less than maybe what there's going to be so many opportunities that way. And so I think you can take advantage is maybe the wrong way to put it, but just like look for there's going to be opportunities out there like that. So I think you can and you can, or maybe before you couldn't put any conditions in, maybe like now you can. So I think it just gives a lot more
Well, you're not buying into
opportunity
the
that way.
S&P 500. Like it's not like you're buying a piece of real estate that's the entire market. You're buying specific properties, and I don't think it's taking advantage. I changed the title of this actual live stream because I didn't like the word take advantage for the same reason. Like you're a good couple, you have good hearts. I know your hearts for people because we align in that aspect. I think it's how do you adapt? And I think from a negotiation perspective, it's just business, right? And to a certain extent, when you're going into a property, explaining to that person, you know, albeit they think they need that price for the property or they won't sell it because they're chasing February, March pricing. If you can show them, well, here's where we're at on our sale, here's where we're going to be at your purchase, and you can make the deal make sense for everybody, therein lies an opportunity. But you two are deal specific, right? And I think that's what I'm really trying to get at is you look at the deal, not necessarily the market, and how you're looking at your deals now versus 3 or 4 months ago. Have you built in any like conservativeness in there, or is there a little bit of a padding you're putting into how you're looking at your acquisitions now versus say February, March?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's like everybody else. It's like cause I plug everything into a spreadsheet, and so I'd look at what I think it's going to be worth after, right? And so that number would be different today than it would have been, you know, maybe a couple months ago or that sort of thing, right? So it's not about getting emotional about it. It's supposed to just looking at what number spits out. And I know like Lindsay and I have been through a lot of these. We're all, you know, this is where my numbers, like even like over the last couple of years, where it's like, you know, I missed out on a lot of deals maybe because like my numbers didn't line up, but sometimes I'd even stretch a little bit above, right?
Yeah.
But it was just like, you know, I just always just stick to those numbers. And if the deal works, like if you get it, then you get it. And if you don't, then you on to the next one, right? So
Every single one of us has that story though. Like everybody, Scott as well, me, like everybody looking back is like, well, knowing what I know now, I would have bought everything, but I think you can't like that, right?
Yeah. No. But I think like sticking to your numbers and feeling good about the project, go like from the beginning, like if you have that, you got to be excited about the project from the beginning, right? Because if you're just kind of, and that's part of why we made the shift. Like I just wasn't feeling as excited about the long-term rentals, and I just felt like I'd done it and I was ready for something. And that is the nice thing about real estate too, is you can use that and transfer. So we're just a little more excited. Like the cottage we bought is a total gut, and so we're fixing it up and we're just enjoying like doing that part of it, right? And the design and that sort of thing. So, and then with flip projects, I think that's what we're, you know, enjoying about those too. So, so yeah, you could just pivoting a little bit into something that we just feel, I think if you go where you feel your passion or that excitement, or you have that spark, I think that goes a long way in being successful. If you're just kind of like, here we go again, and I don't know, right? You're just not really into it, then I think you got to pay attention to that as well, right?
Yeah, passion and purpose. 2 things I want to cover, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay. One, Cam Cohen is on the stream asking if it will be live after and playback. Yes, it's going to live on the YouTube channel, also in the Prime Real Estate Mastermind Facebook group. We don't sell anything. We don't pitch anything there. It's just a place to network with our guests. And he also said great content, so you guys are killing it. I was also going to mention, I do want to ask you one question before I go to Lindsay. On the social media side, I know you're a brand strategist, Tiff, as well, and I'll give everybody the ability to follow Tiffany and Matt. If you click at the bottom of the screen, go to Instagram, send them a message, thank you for this episode, and connect with them. But how has social media changed your business in terms of just the dynamic and communication and networking?
Yeah, I think social media has been like our key for our business, like from the beginning. Just sharing what we're doing really opened up a lot of, like, that's where we found our business partner. We found contractors, where we found you guys. Like, social media literally has been, just the catalyst to our growth. And with that, we just really saw what it can do and how to use it. And that opened up opportunities for myself for a business. So I started using social media to help others as well. And yeah, just sort of snowballed and created opportunities that we didn't even know were available.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's like going back to like what I was saying about the like following your passion, right? Like Tiff she found that spark, and then that became what she really enjoyed. Tiff's much more active on like social media than I am, right? And but on my end, like I found there's like at least two of our properties that we bought. One was just like another investor. We bought a duplex in Brantford, like, but someone just posted an Instagram story about a year or two ago, and just, hey, anybody want to buy this one? I think they had bought like 3 or 4 properties off an investor, and they closed on 3 of them. They just had one that they were. So it was like the duplex. I think it was just around 300,000 in Brantford, and it's like doubled since then or something like that, right? And that was just like I just responded to the story like speed matters, but having a relationship. So I think social media, and Tiff would say this, does become a bit of your like resume, or just how people like get to know you, right? And so yeah, like that's and then another property I bought was like messaging back, and like I literally bought it off Instagram. We were DMing back and forth, and then agreed on the price and the conditions, and
That's
and that
awesome.
was it. Yeah.
Crazy world we live in. Go ahead, Lindsay.
I was just saying it was funny when we got to the office. Matt and Tiffany had said, I don't think we've ever met Justin in person. And that's so funny because we built such a strong relationship virtually, and we can build relationships with other people all around the world. And it just, it makes your circle a little bit smaller. But Tiffany was joking that right now you have to kind of guess, have you met this person in person, and because
That's
they're so
funny.
active on social, right?
I don't even, it's so funny you say that, because I wouldn't have even thought of that, because you guys are family at this point, right? Like you call the bat phone, we're always there for you. But I think definitely when I get back from the little family getaway, we'll grab lunch together, maybe in some sunshine. And that's the coolest part, I think, about the world we're creating, is we get to collaborate, right? I don't want to work with clients that don't want to work with me and don't understand our value proposition. Not because I'm super special. It's just I've very zeroed in on where every hour I'm deploying should be deployed. And I want to work with people that have passion and purpose in the work that they do. Right. And I think it's been cool to watch you guys evolve over the years. And I think you're just getting started, to be honest with you. When you look at the trajectory of where you're going, I can encourage you from the standpoint of saying, that searching of you even having the conversation of like, why are we doing this, is the most important conversation, because it's going to lay the groundwork for, okay, here's the foundation for the world we want to create for ourselves, our children, and our community moving forward. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the future. You will be repeat guests on the show. I can guarantee you that. I want to ask you 3 rapid fire questions before we get you out of here. Is that cool?
Yeah. Sounds good.
So the most burning questions on every investor's minds: how do I find a great deal?
Finding a great deal. I think it's like, I kind of just alluded to this, but I think you have to, well, in order, I think on it, well, I guess part of what I was going to say was like the relationships, or knowing people, but actually the more I think about it, it's like you actually have to know and become a bit of a expert in your area to even know what a good deal is. And I think that's even more important right now, because before you could kind of just, in a lot of ways, you could buy anything that would go up, but now it's like, you got to be locked in. Because I'll look at another market that other people are invested in, like let's say Peterborough or Hamilton or something. I don't really know like what a great deal is. I kind of have a sense, right? But in our local, like London, St. Thomas area, like I'm pretty locked in on what those prices are, and then because that allows you to act quick and be, put in like a good offer on something that's that your numbers on. But some people are, I think like we've never done the, like there's some off market things, there's some on market things. I think like both can apply. But I think it's just like when you see opportunities that come across and people know like on our end, if we let you guys know exactly what we're looking for, then as you see something, you can know
Top of mind.
Oh,
right?
that's what Matt and Tiff are looking for. This is perfect property. So I think it's the clearer you can be and have clarity on what you're looking for, then that allows, I think it just allows others and yourself to see those opportunities as well.
Well, here's one for top of mind, right? You guys have an off-market triplex coming, 2 vacant units in it. If I'm an investor and I hear on an amazing podcast that there's an off-market triplex with 2 vacant units, how the next rapid fire question would be, how would you analyze that property? You not owning it, like say you were the buyer coming to look at that. How would you analyze that deal?
I wouldn't be looking at the same kind of thing I was talking about earlier when we're like, look at what you think the property would be worth. Like after this one needs where it needs some repairs. And so it's looking, okay, after you fix it up, then what are the, what's the potential value of it after, and what are the rents and cash flow? So the nice thing on this one, because it is a triplex, then it, like there should be a good amount of cash flow in the property. And then just for buy and holds, which I would probably approach this one as, like, I always try to get as much of my down payment and renos back, right? And so that's what I'd be looking at too. Like plug it into the spreadsheet to see, okay, this is my down payment. This is what I got to put into it, and then just run the numbers on what you think that looks like. And am I still going to be cash flowing after that? So, but vacancies are hard to come by right now. And so that's a big plus, right? And then, but there's one tenant that's kind of like the stable tenant there too. So, yeah, that's kind of, I don't know what you'd add into that.
Yeah, and I think that that's important too, because it has to make sense for you as an individual investor. And again, it's a longer term rental that might not make sense in your portfolio, but makes sense in someone else's. So I think that that's really important to highlight as well.
Yeah, I was saying to Tiff that this one would have been like it's like the reason, part of our rationale was like we're just like slowly like a little bit making that shift. So we're to doing more active projects and, you know, putting some money into the cottage and things like that. So that's where our goals are right now. But if we were just starting out, this would be a perfect project to, like, you got some stability, but you're like, I would have jumped all over this like 3-4 years ago kind of thing.
This is amazing. And I love seeing this live. Producer eScarf, can you clip that? I want to share it on my IG as well. I would love to actually show a purchaser a connection to the person who's selling the property, create an opportunity for somebody to purchase something off market like that, where they really see the full scope. Because real estate's funny. You never see the seller, you never see the buyer. The agents are in between. You're like, this guy is trying to take advantage of me. Like, it can be a holistic experience and everybody can win. We've got our boy Rob Pelchat in the studio. He's going to ask you guys a question. So Rob is one of the newest agents at Prime. He's an absolute dynamo showing up on the live streams. Rob, you're at the gym right now?
I am at the gym.
You're learning while you're working out. I love that. I think we're all cut from the same cloth. So go ahead. This is Matt and Tiff, and feel free to ask a question.
Yeah, Matt and Tiff, thank you so much. There was a lot of golden nuggets there I took away. My question pertains to a comment you mentioned earlier pertaining to hiring a real estate coach. You guys are the second guest this week that commented on hiring a real estate coach, and I never even heard of a real estate coach. So I was wondering what led you to hiring a coach, and then what were your top takeaways once upon hiring the coach and getting their advice?
I think the biggest thing was when we got into real estate, it was kind of what you said, like we just got the one, we wanted to try it and do it. And then as we fell in love with it, we realized we wanted to take it from a hobby to a business. And I think that's where we were like, okay, if we want to really be serious about this, we need to connect with people who've done this and already been part of it. So that's when we decided to, just sort of step it up and find someone else to bring in the resources.
Yeah, and we brought our coach on. The timing of it was right before, maybe like 3 to 6 months before the pandemic had started, and so I think a lot of people were freaking out, and maybe similar emotions to like some of the changes lately too. But so we bought a property during that because it kind of gave us the steady hand too of kind of like going back to the fundamentals. And this property we bought was about like 20% under the market at that time. So it's like, even if the market drops by 10%, we're still good here. So it's helped us to kind of grow that way. And I think the other benefit, just thinking about the mentor, is that he pushed me. Like I still have work to do on this, but he kind of pushed us to get to share a bit more of our story and get out there a bit more. That's how. So a friend of mine who had done well financially he saw what we were doing on Instagram, and then so we've created a corporation that we're adding properties to on buy and holds now. And so we bought 3-4 properties together out of that. So that would have never happened or could have happened, but just like when people see that you're, okay, we're working with a coach, we're sharing our story, we're all these things, but that definitely helped us. And then we just got connected with other group of investors that are doing a similar thing too, because the coaching program we were a part of, you just start to see other people at various parts of their journey. And so that's like rubbed off on us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Rob?
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, guys.
Appreciate you, brother. Keep hammering in the gym. So one more question, and then we'll have the final one for you. So big question. I think you kind of answered it, but I'd like you to kind of highlight it so I can clip it. How do you raise money?
How do we what? Sorry? How do we earn money?
How do you raise money? You talked about obviously networking and the coach and the business partnership, but part of it would have been your own. I'm sure. Do you raise money outside of that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like I think I just see it as like as a tool for the things that we're trying to accomplish in life. So I think I've thinking back to like when you're asking about before we started investing, I think I would have had a different answer. But I think now I kind of look at it as just we're trying to create a certain lifestyle. And so the things like we had a day last Sunday where we were, our oldest son had a soccer game in Windsor, and then we all went, and then we went to a local beach down there, and we were just with our family all day, and it was an amazing day, right? And it's like I wouldn't trade anything for like those kind of days, right? So it's like that's the most important thing, and that's, as Tiff was saying, that's why we're doing what we're doing. I think that's where I honestly look back and I'm like, we could have done a lot more as well, but we basically we've made this decision to say for us right now, we're just kind of trying to add on projects, but we're not like necessarily trying to like burn ourselves out or just go, so maybe there's an aspect of where you could go all in, but we just kind of did it at our own pace. And so that's worked really well for us. And so, because like it's the other things are much more important. I don't know what you'd add to that.
No, I feel like that's exactly it. Like, and that goes back to what I was talking about, where we're always just assessing like what we're doing. Does it make sense for a family? Because you can start comparing yourself to everyone else or what they're doing, or so-and-so bought this amount of property. And that's not what we're in it for. And so it's like, and when we assess our properties recently, like, is this going to make sense for our family? Because it doesn't matter about everyone else. It matters about our own families. So we have to make sure our mindset is focused on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The investment community and the real estate community are so similar. Agents have a habit, and it's so annoying. I try not to. It was like, look at the property I just sold, over asking, look at how many houses I sold, look at my award I got it from my office of how many. I'm like, but what did you do for the client? Investors are like, look at how many units I bought. It's this measuring stick in every investment community that you get into. And it's like, okay, cool. Never, ever have I seen an investor that they post something like that. And then all of a sudden the entire community is like, you've made it. We love you. Yet I find people, again, purpose, passion, they get freedom and joy and the ability to do that time with their family, still build their portfolio and get freedom. That's the answer, right? So I think you guys have broken through that glass ceiling of just chasing the units and comparing yourself against other investors. I'm excited for the future. The last question that I always like to ask our guests, because you made so much time for us and there's so much value in this content for investors out there. What can we do for you? Is there something if you had to put on a billboard for investors, you'd want them to know? Is there something you're working on or passionate about that you want us to point them to? Our platform is yours.
No, I feel like we're in a really good, I feel really grateful for the spot that we're in the sense that we've had like a lot of people around us and you guys in our corner and others to help guide us in certain ways. I think we're like a lot of people just kind of working through and assessing where we're at next. We do have this property that's the one property that we're looking to sell right now. So I guess it's just, you put the word out on that, which is awesome.
I like it. That's awesome.
Yeah, you threw that in there. So that's great. I don't know what you would say, Jeff.
I don't know.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, no,
so you're standing at the top of the mountain. The entire world is standing at the bottom. You have to say one thing. What message are you leaving us with today?
It's interesting because I just wrote a message to my nephew. My sister asked us to write he's turning 19, and so I just kind of like she asked us all to write a message to him for his birthday, and so I just wrote him something. But I think it's like it's even like thinking back to myself at the beginning of our story, where it's like just like you want to look back in your life and feel like all those things you could have done or should have done, and it could be real estate, it could be other things, right? But it's like just do it. Like be smart about it, but do the thing that you've been thinking about, or if that's the thing that's like pay attention to that and how you're, and then just like take action on it, and you'll learn from there, right? So I think a lot of people, including myself, could get lost in that kind of like analyzing this, or should I do this, or should I do that, or is this the but you learn so much more, and you just live life in such a more it's just been a lot more fun the last like couple of years too, right? Just experiencing different things, and some have worked and some haven't, and you learn from it all.
Yeah. And to add to that, just not being afraid, and like just doing it, but not being afraid, and trying new things. Definitely.
Just like the Prime People podcast. Well, thanks for coming on to the podcast. I definitely appreciate you guys being here. Lindsay, any parting words?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm so thankful for the opportunity that we've had to meet. Just to see the passion that you put towards investing is more than the money. And again, that's the people that we love to connect with. So I'm so thankful that we've had the opportunity to become friends and family. So yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing your story for newer investors. I think there's a lot of information that you've shared, practical and tactical, that a lot of people are going to benefit from. So thanks again for sharing it to the world. Make sure you follow their at Mallet Properties as well.
I'll go find that right now. Hold on 1 second. Or you know what, Eric, can you add it to the replay? Everybody can go follow at Mallet Properties as well.
Exactly. And their personal accounts too are always great too. Thank
Awesome.
you guys.
Well, thanks again.
Thank
for coming on the
you.
show. I just realized this was the mastermind. I will get you guys on Prime People as well. Go enjoy your weekend, and thanks for coming in studio again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.